Well, good afternoon. If everyone could take their chairs, speaking to some of my colleagues. We're moving to the second portion, which is the listening session. Very, very important part of what we intended to do here, because we wanted to hear a wide range of folks talk about tuition for our public universities and the kind of information that we would need as we move forward to being change agents, because we are going to be clearly change agents from what has been done in the past. So with that, I didn't look up, I just got in. Do we have student government representatives here from UNI? Do we have any student government folks? We do. If you would just come up to the microphone, give us your name and your representation.
Correct. I'm not a student government representative. Michael Walter. I'm the chair of the Faculty Senate, and I'm looking around and I don't see my student government colleagues here. So there's one. I'm here. Come on up.
Well, I want to lead with the student government folks, if I could.
Hi, my name is Cade Olmstead. I'm the lower cabinet director for local governmental relations for the student government. I also sit on the Cedar Falls City Council. And so I just thought I would speak as a part of this listening session. Of course, what I'm saying is not like any sort of unified statement that has been passed by all of student government. I just thought I would come as one of the leaders on the university's campus to speak to the effect of how students are going to feel about these tuition increases and such.
That's exactly why we wanted you here, and we were hopeful that we would have a representation of students because you're directly affected.
Yes, yes. Tuition increases are at the heart of students, and I think we are one of the most important voices in this discussion. Especially with the current situation around the country with increasing and growing debt that is affecting students. I mean, studies have also shown the greater effect of student debt in that it decreases home ownership in the future and is delaying many of the traditional economic roles that are quickly filled after people leave college. That has now changed, and we're in a very changing environment. And I appreciate your statement about now we need to be agents of change. And I think as a student, it's time that we as a state start recognizing education as a public good, as it once was. And I personally feel that we should be moving towards the decommodification of education, as it is a vehicle to increase one's livelihood and expand it, and it does not only play an economic role in this country, but also just makes us better off as people and increases advancements in all realms and spheres of life. So that is where I personally come from. I feel that I understand that the state is in a tight situation when it comes to public funding and such, and that obviously, like a tuition-free university is very hard to implement at this time, but I certainly think it's something we should be focused on, as I believe education is a public good and it needs to start being recognized as a public good. I think that pretty much encapsulates what I feel and how other students are feeling, and that the work we do needs to start being, recognized to a certain degree, and a greater subsidization of that work. Thank you.
Hang up. I may have colleagues here that have questions. Go ahead.
Yes.
You have to use your mic, would you?
Have you used the program that they talked about understanding your financial situation? Have you gone through that program?
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of it, but no, I've not participated in the financial literacy program that we have, though I do know other students who have participated in it, and from what I understand, they have enjoyed the information and any of the skills that they have gotten from being a part of that.
And I'm looking for the effectiveness of it, of people saying, wow, that really helped me, it changed my life, it changed my thinking. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, and I can speak like personally, I think it's great that we have these financial literacy programs. I think their effectiveness is decreased as the cost of tuition continues to go up. And even though we may have the information to better handle our finances, to the degree it's out of our control as we are continued to ask to pay more and more, and however many more dollars we continue to increase by year. So I think the effectiveness is decreased, and it becomes a little less relevant when it's out of our control.
Hi. In talking about that, though, it is out of your control. I understand what you're saying, but is there a level of tuition increase in students' minds that would be appropriate?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what President Nook has said, especially about this projection of trying to keep pace with the Consumer Price Index. I think that is a great goal, and I think that is a lot more manageable for students. Obviously, the more state funding we can have in the end to decrease our burden going forward is the most favorable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board members? Well, thank you so much. We really, and tell your student staff, governance, how much we appreciate what they do. They come for breakfast, you come for breakfast when we have the meetings and stuff, and you have a great staff, and it's going to be very important that we hear from you and continue to hear from you as this process moves along. And I know the President feels the same way, so thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Next, comments, questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Laswell. I'm one of the Associate Deans in the College of Education. And on the behalf of our Dean, Gaetan Jean-Marie, and our Vice President for Educator Prep, Dr. Vicki Robinson, welcome to our campus. I'd like to share with you a little bit of information about what we do in the College of Education. First of all, at UNI, one of 4 freshmen students major in education. Elementary education is the largest major on our campus with more than 1,200 students. More than 450 new teachers graduate from UNI each year, making our educator prep program the largest in the state of Iowa. And that sounds like a lot of people, but in the last 2 weeks, I will tell you that I have gotten panicked phone calls from school districts because there are not enough teachers. And that's border to border because we have north to south, east to west, and in neighboring states. So that does sound like a large number, but obviously it's not enough. UNI graduates teach in all 99 counties in Iowa and in 98% of the state's school districts. We look forward to continuing this legacy and preparing high-quality teachers. You also may be aware that Schindler Education Center has been revamped, refurbished, revibrated, all of those re's, and it is awesome. It really lets us have a dynamic learning space that's flexible and connected and collaborative. In fact, Waterloo schools today are using that. They're so impressed with the technology that are there, so our partners are reaping benefits as well. As a state, regional, and national leader in education, we continue to inspire and be a showcase for teaching and learning. However, college affordability presents a myriad of challenges in our efforts to develop a pipeline for 21st century teachers. As you consider UNI's tuition rate, please give consideration how it will impact the number of educators we prepare. Really appreciate your continued support for the educator programs at UNI and the chance to be with you today.
Are there questions?
What percentage of the 450 graduates stay in the state of Iowa?
I would say that the vast majority stay in Iowa. We're seeing when students do go away, we're seeing Minnesota a lot because the states that we border. We do have a number that will go internationally, and it just varies from year to year.
Well, as an old alum, the education that you do for teachers are the people that bring our students up and young people up in this state of Iowa, and UNI, we're all very, very proud of UNI and its educational system. And I can tell you, based on a board meeting I went to in the Marshtown High School, I know what you're saying, and I think probably a lot of people don't know how important and how difficult it is to get the number of teachers that we need now. So I think that gives UNI a great destination to grow, and I know that the president and staff and all of you folks will grow UNI to meet those needs. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jeff Danielson. I represent the Cedar Valley, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and Hudson, and am a proud double alum of the University of Northern Iowa. First, I just want to thank you for holding a meeting like this. Difficult topics in public policy have to have transparency in order for the rest of us to know whether the decisions that you make are the ones that we would also consider and can be a part of. These days, that's not easy, and so I want to thank you for being here to do that. And then also thank President Nook and the other folks that talked about the good things here at the University of Northern Iowa. A takeaway for me from this meeting is that UNI in particular is a high-value proposition. The resources that you invest in us have a return on investment, and the evidence is pretty clear. So I like the idea that going forward that we're seen as a unique business model for the state, and that our core competencies, the things that we do well, can continue. But that the other takeaway is we cannot do that, in particular for us, without the state support. We have less ability to make up revenue in other places. So we hope to be a partner with you on whatever this task force decides. I think that the tone and tenor of this presentation, in my view, as a representative of UNI and an alum, that we should come out pretty good in terms of what I think that you'll propose. And I also want to just add a plug for the tuition differential. You know, what has been supposedly fair for UNI in previous years, because it was kind of equal across the Regents universities, was really not fair. It was not a way for us to get the resources that we needed. And so I am supportive of tuition differentials. I'm supportive of looking at UNI as a unique business model and allowing you to make the decisions that you need to do in partnership with the legislature, because that's where the resources come from, in order to keep the kind of success that UNI has achieved. So I think that that's good. Those are learning moments that perhaps other Iowans haven't been able to hear a lot about. I would offer, though, maybe a suggestion, and it goes back to the tier study. I don't think we've went far enough in terms of looking at the redundancies for the core competencies of the three universities. So it's popularly known that University of Iowa does really well in healthcare research and providing healthcare services. It's popularly known that Iowa State has an awesome, really, really good engineering program and ag technology, and that they have a core competency in that area. And you just heard that our core competency is education at every level. And it is the tradition of the University of Northern Iowa as a state teachers college to sort of be the state's resource for education. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is the education capital of Iowa. If you don't believe me, I could give you my telephone emails of all the educators, sometimes 3 generations of educators that live in my district, so that every time there's a discussion about education somewhere else in the state, education with a capital E, I probably have 2 or 3 generations of experts in my district who would love to help provide those answers. So let me bring this in full focus as it relates to the tier study and redundancies, which we basically punted on at this point. So a few years ago, the state of Iowa wanted to attack the problem of early childhood reading competency. Basically make sure third graders are at or above their peers so they can move on and be successful. And the state created an entirely new reading program. It began with a contract in the private sector. Since it's sort of migrated to the University of Iowa in a partnership. Well, that particular issue, our core competency here at the University of Northern Iowa is education, is early childhood reading. We actually have the Jacobson Center. So I think it's important going forward, the Board of Regents, the legislature, the governor's office, as the three decision makers on this, give ourselves the ability to call time out and maybe think about those decisions in terms of what the University of Northern Iowa can provide. If it has to do with education with a capital E, I think we're the place where we should think about state initiatives first. And early childhood reading, I think, is an example where we probably reinvented the wheel. And if you've seen the results of that investment, the presentations that I've seen in the Senate on the Education Committee, you would be disappointed with the proposals and the outcomes of that effort. And we spent millions of dollars. We probably could have used a state resource, i.e. the University of Northern Iowa and our education college, probably saved some money and got some better results out of what we were going to do about early childhood reading. Why do I believe that? Well, we have a successful test. The STEM initiative has been headquartered at the University of Northern Iowa and has been a very thoughtful, successful process for how to get science, technology, engineering, and math more widely participated in our K-12 schools and then create the future success from those ideas. It has been headquartered here because we're an education institution, and that's where that conversation really needed to be talked about so that you get those long-term success. So I would just set those two examples beside each other, the STEM initiative and the early childhood reading. STEM initiative used us as a resource, and today I think everybody has concluded it is successful and on its way. The early childhood reading issue in Iowa, I think in most people's view, has not been solved, and we are not making the kind of improvements for the money and the results that we would expect. And I believe if that would have been at the University of Northern Iowa, we probably would have made better decisions and got better outcomes. So I'm no stranger to cost-saving initiatives in the Capitol. I've served with many of you in the legislature. I'm willing to take it on the chin when it comes to making tough decisions about our budget, priorities, and the kind of outcomes we expect. We helped in 08, 09 to save some money in the state budget, and there are ways in which I think the regents, the legislature, and the governor's office can think about this and then use the actual state resources that we have, like the University of Northern Iowa, when that area of policy comes up and people want answers. So thank you for being here again. Takeaway, UNI is high value. We have tough decisions in the future, but if you send $1 to the University of Northern Iowa, you're going to get a return on investment. And we want to be partners with you in the future on whatever cost-saving measures you have to decide so that we can continue to have the quality here that we've come to enjoy. Go Panthers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yes. Hi, I have one. When you talk about redundancies, do you see any redundancy here at UNI that we could be or should be looking at?
I think it should all be on the table, and we should judge the quality outcomes, right? So if there's an education initiative somewhere in the state, I think we should be the asset that gets the first look at whether you're going to carry that out. In terms of programs that might overlap in other areas, I think the University of Northern Iowa has been willing to look at those things. The tier study actually showed that we were probably a little better at the IT infrastructure and the things that we were doing, which some of those ideas were then adopted. So Panthers are not afraid of competition or critique or scrutiny for what we're doing, because I think those of us that have been involved here over the last couple of years trying to make a budget work and get the outcomes that we have realize that we've got really good metrics, and we're not afraid of competition. It goes to student recruitment and all the other programs that we're involved in. So we're open to that. And we think that makes Iowa better when we do those kinds of constructive critiques.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And thank you for being here, Senator Danielson. I wanted to ask, if you take this out a ways, this redundancies, are you saying that ultimately we would have Iowa State only doing engineering? That's the only place. This would be the only place for education, or how? Where does it break down for redundancies?
Well, obviously, anytime you use qualifiers like only or hard and fast absolute standards, it's really hard to apply in the day-to-day decisions you have to make, right? They're going to have an education college at a university, right? But I don't think it then extends to, if you're going to have a completely new initiative on early childhood reading, that you never even considered the partnership with the University of Northern Iowa, which also has a public-private partnership with the Jacobson Reading Center. I just think as decision makers, and there's a lot of savvy and experience at the table here, that when those initiatives start to get talked about, calling a timeout at least to say, hey, are we going to spend another $8 million a year on a reading program and not think about maybe using our current assets? So some of it's just not reinventing the wheel. But clearly, I think if you talk about the overlaps, you actually learn something from that. If the conclusion is there's enough demand because the students in the programs are performing, let's do it. But we're in a situation right now where it's hard to pay our bills if we don't get the support that we have for our core competencies. And the reading program, I think, is one that kind of jumps out at me. Why would we have created a new program when we have the ability to do it here, probably for lower costs and higher quality? Just talking about it helps. And I think the tier study reveals that. There were a lot of recommendations in the tier study, and we attacked some of them, but we haven't really looked at the redundancy piece, and I think you and I will stack up well under that comparison. Yeah.
Other questions? Well, Senator, we go back a long time. I really appreciate your comments here today. As I've said, and I've been used and quoted on it from time to time, everything was going to be on the table when we went through this. But this has got to be a collaborative project among all three universities, faculty, staff, students, senators. And I'm hopeful, and you and I had battles on the Senate floor from time to time, but when we left, we were friends, and we just had difference in ideas and policies. That is what I want to come out of this next 6 months, year, as we do the transition, and you know change is coming. Change has to come for our universities to be the high quality that they are. So I want us to be apolitical. I want to be able to go to talk to either caucus in Des Moines in a manner that you talk today. We're going to find changes and find things that are more efficient and better that improve all three of our universities. You said it well today, so thank you for coming.
Thank you. I get critiques from both ends. Happy to be in the middle, solving problems.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, anything for the good of the order? Oh, we're not done yet. Come on in. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Cindy Winkler from Davenport, and I have served as either chair or ranking member on the Education Budget Subcommittee, which basically funds higher education. I have a few comments to make, and I would like to say that I got my master's in education technology from the University of Northern Iowa. My daughter is an early childhood graduate from the University of Northern Iowa as well. As we're talking about the tuition, I think that it is helpful to look at how the Regent universities play a role in the needs of the communities across the state. And I actually have two different presentations that have been made by different entities at the state level in regard to looking forward to 2025. So a 5-year plan is helpful. It doesn't quite get us where we might need to be as far as a well-prepared workforce. That is only a part of the role of the Regent universities, but it is an important one. So the governor has a Future Ready Iowa task force. Many of you might be attending some of those meetings. We also have our Iowa College Student Aid Commission that does an annual report on the higher education. And I have only one copy of the metrics that matter, but I have a few copies of their report. I've referenced them in my comments. And I do want to call your attention to some of the things that I have in my formal presentation that I handed out. First of all, Future Ready Iowa 2025 vision is to have 70% of all Iowans that ages 25 to 64 have post-secondary degree or credentials. We are currently at 42.5, I think, percent. We have a long way to go. I've included in the materials a map by county as to where we are. There's one county that is at 60%. All the rest of the counties are below 60%, and of course it's colored by scale. We have a long way to go to meet that 2025, and I know that you are not only looking at freshmen as right out of high school, but you're looking at being an education institution for all as they continue their education as well. In order to meet that goal of the 2025 70%, we would need to have 150,000 more individuals in the pipeline than we currently have now. And for a bachelor's degree, in order to meet the workforce requirements, 31,000 of those individuals would be a responsibility in some part of our Regent universities. 31,000, it is projected that they would need by 2025, in order to meet the 70% goal, 31,000 additional bachelor degreed individuals. You can play a role in that. So as you think about your 5-year projections and trying to figure out where you fit in there, we also need to consider the goal of the workforce demands and what business would ask of higher education institutions. I also have in the handout from the Future Ready Workforce, they have Iowa's top high demand jobs by percent, and all of them require post-secondary education. So that, for those of you who have the handouts, and there are some additional ones there, it would be the Appendix A. All of them require post-secondary education. Many of them bachelor's degrees, some of them doctoral or professional degrees. Then I also look at the responsibility that we have as a state legislator in supporting the goals. Certainly we have a responsibility to meet workforce demands, but we also have a responsibility for the students and the families. And I want to share that the last chart that you have, I actually went through all of the gray books from 2000 to 2017 and identified what our net appropriations were from the state, and then using the gray book also what the appropriations were for general aid for the Regents. And I have that in that last chart. In 2000, 11.5 of our state resources, our general fund resources, went towards Regent general aid. There has been a steady decline of the state's commitment to Regent universities to the point of only 6.8% of our state general fund revenue now currently being appropriated to our Regent universities. That places, as the chart that was shown earlier, how state appropriations and tuition, how that all plays in the ability for the Regent universities to do what is expected of them. Families and students have ended up picking up the greater majority of the support for our Regent universities currently. I know that that's a national trend, but in a state like Iowa, the question would be, should it? Should it be a trend, or should we be a leader? It was mentioned that some of the other states have done more with their funding, with their state funding, than we have. It's a question that we need to ask. And we need to think about what the role of education is. As I look at education, and of course coming with a background from education, it's easy, I think, for you to understand that education is a freedom issue. And access should never come in the way of an individual's right to have a quality education. And we need to also think about that. I could go on and on about the funding and the role that our regents play. I think that many of the slides that were presented this morning show how serious our regents have been about quality education, timely, looking at completion rates, even though the state has not always supported them to the extent that they need. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I think you've made the point that this is a collaborative event.
Absolutely.
And the next couple of years, as I said to the senator, this is collaborative. And the reason we're here is that we need to hear from Iowans. We need to hear from all of the folks that are affected by this. And we hope that we continue to collaborate, and when we go back down to Des Moines and we visit in the wintertime and stuff, that we're collaborating and we're all thinking outside the box about how we're going to continue Iowa as the greatest state to have 3 great universities in the nation. So
thank you.
Keep that good work up.
There's one other comment that I would like to make, and this comes from the OECD. Their data identifies that for every year that a community gains in the educational attainment, collective educational attainment, there is a 3.7% long-term economic impact for that community. I think that our Regent universities certainly can take responsibility for playing a role in it currently, but as we continue to meet that 70% goal, we can certainly see a return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi there, my name is Tim Bakula, and I'm the Interim Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships here at UNI. And I wanted to share my personal experience as well as my professional experience in the office here for the last 13 years. So roughly 20 years ago, I was a high school senior in New Hampton looking at where to go to college. And I figured one of the best places to go as I wanted to be an educator would be UNI. I chose to come to here, and I haven't left since. I have 2 degrees from the university, and I've worked here as a full-time staff member for 13 years now. Right now, my office is back in Gilchrist Hall answering hundreds of questions per day from families about how they're going to afford college. They take great pride in that. They do a great job with that. And one of the things that I think President Nook elaborated on quite a bit was being reasonable and predictable in where we're at. So I applaud the board and our leadership here at UNI for coming to this discussion today. In 2008, as was referred to by President Nook, it's 10 years ago, but it also marks the 10-year anniversary of Live Like a Student. That's the financial literacy program that you saw pictured in one of the slides there. And Regent Dunkel asked a question to our students about their participation in that program. I helped start that program basically as a in-person, one-on-one, small group session for students. And as our students said, not every student unfortunately is able to partake, but those that do, they see the great value in that. One of the things that came up 10 years ago, and Rachel pointed it out in her presentation and slides, is the lack of state support, and it was just mentioned here a moment ago as well. So I don't want this to seem like our universities, Iowa State, and UNI, are going to find a way to have predictable tuition, and there's nothing that the state needs to do anymore. I think that discussion still needs to come up. President Nook made some new friends in Des Moines here a couple months ago when he even brought up the discussion of state appropriations. So that was good to see, and I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. I'll take any questions that you have, but I do appreciate your time and efforts in doing all of this, and we'll see where this goes over the next year.
When your office or you visit with students, what kind of response? It'd be just kind of interesting to know. Are some of them really kind of surprised at what they find out as to how they can maybe lessen their debt or what can be done?
Sure, yeah, I think that's the one overriding mission of our office is to help students understand the most affordable way to pay for their education. So accessibility is very important to us, and obviously not everyone is paying the same dollar value on their university bill due to the financial aid they have, but to understand what they can do to kind of offset the amount of loans that they may have to take, how to apply for the scholarships, and really just how to better budget their own money in terms of bringing that indebtedness down. So I thought it was great, the slides that really showed all three universities within the state having a decrease in indebtedness over the last several years there. And that goes to show what each of our offices are committed to.
I don't know if this should apply to your office, but I guess it's a question in my mind. Does it start the day that the students come, the students and families and orientation? Is there any communication with our local high schools throughout the state to help prepare students and families? Yeah.
For many families, it starts during that orientation or senior year. Now, it should start much earlier. I have an 11 and a 9-year-old, and so I remember when we left the hospital even, them giving us something about how to save for college. You know, so that's when it should start really. And I think the predictability measure of this might help some families with that, to know, here's really what we're looking at in the next 5 years. Here's what I need to start thinking about as a 7th and 8th grader and in the middle school setting to see what my college options are and how much it costs me to go to those schools. So the earlier we can get out there, the better. We do a great job in working with, as was pointed out, the College Aid Commission, the Iowa College Access Network, and then just amongst the university campus at large, in terms of helping high school students understand the importance of having an accessible college and what they really need to consider when looking at the price of an institution, sticker price versus what they're actually paying. So yeah, families are getting much more savvy. I would say it's a big credit to the students actually in terms of seeing that indebtedness go down. They're the ones that are making the sacrifice of maybe working a little bit more or finding ways to cut corners, if you will, to not have to borrow as much. So we're just kind of giving them some of the options there for themselves to take part in.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything?
Other questions? Well, thank you so much for what you do with kids and helping them out to get through their education. And clearly you know how to properly dress when you come to a meeting here.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Excuse me, I've had a little bit of a cold. That wasn't a very good start. Any other questions? This, friends and neighbors, has been a great day. This is probably one of the best days that I've had on the Board of Regents, and I look forward to the meetings that we have coming up. We have the next meeting Wednesday, August 9th at Iowa State University, 10:30, same time over at Iowa State, and we hope to have the same kind of group of people over there as we've had here, that we're very collaborative and very transparent about giving us the information that we need. This board is a change board. This is a change agent board, and we are committed, and this is going to be some period of time. This isn't going to happen overnight by this winter or next spring or next fall. This is a long-term project to change how we function in the state of Iowa, because we owe to the citizens of the state of Iowa the kind of quality that we got when we went through school at the cost effective that we could do and stay in Iowa and be there. So I'm going to close here. We get the Association for Governance Boards documents every month or every quarter. Susan Wheeler Johnson, the AGB Executive Vice President, had a beautiful article in that caught my attention. The article is Learning to Relish Change. Learning to relish change. And she says, and I'm just going to read just a bit of it. When the rate of change inside an organization becomes slower than the rate of change outside, the end is in sight. This observation by Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric, appeared in the company's 2000 annual report in a section called Relishing Change. Relishing Change. But it could just as easily apply to higher education today. Higher education is facing an inflection point. 3 critical factors affecting its business model are changing simultaneously. Who's going to college? What they are willing and able to pay, and how they are learning. I thought that was such a wonderful statement, and I think that is the mission of our board in the days, months, and years to come. We thank all of you for coming. We thank all of the input. And don't stop now. You can find our emails. You can text us. You can call us. The board needs to hear, because this is a collaborative event and a need for the state of Iowa. So join it. We're going to keep this going, and we'll go next Wednesday to Iowa State University to hear what they have to say. So again, we will adjourn 14 minutes early, so I'm well on time today. So thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.